Product marketing is making the complex feel simple and the simple feel powerful. I've always loved that moment when a customer or a sales rep suddenly just gets it. When a product's potential, it turns into that aha moment. I think that's what good product marketing does. It's just simplifying the storytelling and building trust with customers. So it's that blend between technology and trust, but using simple language.
Hello and welcome back to Product Marketing Life. I'm Sid Kaitan. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Beekeeper by Lumaps, and I'll be your host. Today I'm joined with Nupur, Head of Product Marketing at Kustomer. Nupur, welcome.
Excited to be here, Sid.
Would love to just start by, if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself. I always like to say I love to keep it like casual. What do you do for fun? Would love to tell the audience.
Awesome. Well, as you introduced me, my name is Nupur. I lead the product marketing team at Kustomer. We are an AI native CX platform built for mid-market and enterprise companies. I started the PMM team as a one-woman show here at Kustomer, and we're now 5 strong, so it's going really well. What do I like to do? Well, outside of work, so when I'm not talking about AI and CX, I'm basically chasing my 3-year-old daughter around the playground. For me, it's more leg day than play. She just never wants to leave, and it's a huge, chaotic mess for me. But lately, we have been going to tunnel tops in San Francisco. I don't know if you've been to San Francisco, but it's this wonderful playground where you have this incredible view of the Golden Gate. It's just a fun place with kids running around, people flying kites, families picnicking. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, I guess my daughter is now my hobby. That's how she's what keeps, she's the light of my life, and she's what keeps me energized outside of work.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it sounds like you're able to explore the world and hobbies through her. So with this experience, so that's very cool. Potentially related, what is a non-marketing skill or habit that makes you better at product marketing?
I think my biggest non-marketing skill is just being really organized in life and at work. I've always been that person who takes the most really detailed, copious notes. Back in school, people would actually borrow my notes before like a big exam or a unit test or something because they were just so thorough. I would write everything down. And this habit has stuck with me into my career. I used to take pages and pages of handwritten notes in every meeting that I would be a part of. And now, of course, I've upgraded that. I don't write as much. I use AI tools to capture and organize my thoughts. And sometimes I just talk to AI, almost like a voice memo. And I have it structure everything for me. I even throw like meeting transcriptions and turn them into process docs. So in a way, note taking is still my thing. It's just evolved. Now I can just organize everything faster and I guess, turn my notes into action like just quicker and more efficiently.
I love it. We had a similar response from a guest, but she talked about being organized in a completely different way. So I really like how you've framed it. Like, it's about taking good notes, really capturing the meeting, documenting things. I think it is an unsaid product marketing superpower, right?
Yeah. And we are in so many meetings all day, every day with all kinds of, with product, with sales, with customer success. The best way to keep track of all of that was with note taking. And now you have AI for that, which is great.
That's perfect. Awesome. Well, I'd love to talk about your career into product marketing. I always like to say everyone has their like stumbled into product marketing moment because it's not like something you get a degree for and then show up to your first job. So what was your story? How did you discover product marketing?
Stumbled is the right word. It's definitely the right word. It also kind of just happened to me. I was studying electronics and telecommunication engineering, learning all about microprocessors and microcontrollers. And while I wasn't uninterested, I also wasn't exactly passionate about it. It was just what we did in my family. My dad had founded and sold his own semiconductor company. My mom taught electronics in a college. And my brother, who's a whole 8 years younger, is also following the same path. So you can say it's a family thing at this point. But somewhere along the way during my bachelor's program, I started looking for a summer job. And a friend who also happened to be my neighbor referred me to a company called InMobi. InMobi is a mobile ad tech company. It's one of India's early unicorns based out of Bangalore. And ad tech was the hot thing at the time. And a marketing leader called Ratnesh was looking for product marketing interns. And as luck would have it, I think I said the word passion during the interview. And something that I guess it just struck a chord with him, and I got the gig. And I ended up interning there with this really eclectic bunch of people. He had just assembled, I don't know how he did it, but there was one product marketing intern who was studying at Stanford who was Korean, and he was going to join the army. And then there were a couple of other people from like Northwestern who had just come to India for the summer, and were working there. And there were other people like me who were just trying to figure things out. But I guess what really drew me into product marketing was that it really blended the technical with the glamorous. Um, Engineering at that time, it just didn't seem as exciting as getting on stage and pitching a product. And I think that's what really hooked me. And since then, I've kind of juggled between big and small companies. InMobi, as I said, was large. Smart Recruiters was scrappy and small, and then Twilio was the largest I've worked at. And now I'm at Customer. It's sort of it's 200 growing to be 250. We're a Series B, but I guess I've really enjoyed that little bit of toggle. But I guess the place where I truly learned product marketing and why I've stayed in this profession, because I know a lot of people think about product marketing and then maybe deviating and going into product management and whatnot. But for me, I think it was my time at Twilio. I spent over 6.5 years there, and honestly, it felt like I had 5 different careers at that time. I started as an individual contributor. I was focused on launching products across Twilio's APIs, and then I moved into developer tooling, products that were built on top of these APIs. And then I deviated a little bit to work on platform marketing, which was all about telling Twilio's broader portfolio story. And that's when I got to work on some really strategic initiatives like the joint storytelling between Twilio and SendGrid, which was one of Twilio's biggest acquisitions. Um, then I shifted and became a manager, eventually moved on to Segment, which was another company that Twilio acquired. So yeah, Twilio was where I really grew up as a product marketer. It was like a master class really in like scale, storytelling, company evolution, like you name it.
Yeah, it sounds like you caught a lot of flavors of product marketing too. You mentioned the SendGrid acquisition. I'd love to kind of dive a little deeper into that. Like how does that work? How does product marketing look like when you have to kind of join these different stories and put them all into one? How do you reposition and just manage the chaos of a acquisition?
Well, I mean, you're taking me back to 2019. Um, Twilio acquired SendGrid. It was an all-stock transaction. It was valued at around 2 billion. It was a big deal. It was one public company acquiring another. That doesn't happen every day. And what made it especially interesting from a marketing perspective was the irony of it all. Up until that point, Twilio had always positioned itself as a communications API company, all about SMS, voice, video APIs, and we were very vocal about the fact that email was outdated. We'd literally say SMS and voice are the future, email is dead, and then suddenly we bought an email company. So, I mean, needless to say, like the marketing team has to pivot. We have to do it fast. We need a new overarching story, one that made sense, of this move and positioned Twilio as this all-in-one communications platform for all business communication, and together in one place for developers. So for me as a PMM, tactically, this meant building out a new corporate pitch deck from the ground up, designing a new architecture that showed how these pieces fit together in a unified platform, changing how the homepage looked and what story we said on the homepage. So those are just the tactical things. Um, but the storytelling doesn't quite stop there because we also had to prove that this integration made business sense to investors, to the board, to the market. We were a public company. So a small tiger team was formed. It was me, my friend James, who was on the operations team, and another person who served as the chief of staff to our CRO. And together we had this cross-sell plan. There were some pretty bold goals. We had to sell 20 million in ARR of Twilio products to SendGrid and 5 million in ARR of SendGrid products to the Twilio base that same year. And so I guess what I would say is that like just a lot of chaos. It was this rare moment where like marketing strategy, storytelling, business results, all of that have to come together, and it has to come together really fast, because that's the other thing. It's not like the product marketing team has a heads up that an acquisition is going to happen. It just happens, and then you have to move.
Yeah, exactly. You get the decision, then it's time to find a way to operationalize it.
Yep.
You mentioned some pretty big goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious how that went. Like did things go according to plan? Once you like had the story in place, how do you take action on it? I guess. Yeah.
In Q1, well, I think Q1 was when we started. I think the company had hit the overall pipeline targets for that quarter. But what we learned was that our initial broad campaign they were small incentives to try Twilio's or SendGrid products. They were important steps, but they were not sufficient enough to generate pipeline for the sales team. And that's because we were selling the same use case to a different base. So let me put it simply. Twilio is an API company. We have channels like SMS and voice. Companies use those APIs to build use cases like alerts and notifications, marketing promotions. Like a real world example is when your Uber driver arrives at your doorstep, or your DoorDash order is getting delivered. Those same notifications can also happen on email. They happen on SMS, but they can happen on email. Then why would a company that's already using SMS for notifications want to use email, especially if it's already meeting the need? So we needed more compelling reasons for companies and customers to consider Twilio products for existing and new use cases. And so we kind of went back to the basics of product marketing: segmentation. You want to promote the right message to the right audience through the right channel. And so what we did was we went back and segmented customers and the messaging based on their existing use cases. This meant that if we realized that a SendGrid customer was already using email for a use case like notifications, we'd look at other use case gaps they had in their business, like perhaps their marketing team could use some SMS marketing, very different from alerts and notifications, and also talking to a different buyer. But that way you can get that expansion. We also looked at positioning again. We worked out the nuances of those different channels and when both can serve different needs, like SMSs are great when you want to do urgent communications. And emails are great when you want to have some sort of recall value, like perhaps a receipt. Going back to that DoorDash example, for instance, you place an order, you're getting notified about order status and delivery. Those notifications are great on text because of the urgency. You ordered a pizza, you want to know if it's, where it is it going to come soon? But when you're enjoying your food, the receipt and that request for a rating is probably best served on email. Like you don't need it at that instant. And then finally, I think like all these use cases and the positioning and segmenting, like all of that was important, but we really doubled down on the thought leadership piece around all of this because we wanted to educate the market. We wanted to tell them that, there's a time and place for these different channels of communication, and we really, put the fuel into the fire, I guess. I don't have a better analogy right now to like pump up the messaging and the thought leadership to educate the market on all of these things.
Very interesting. It's almost like you wanted to avoid cannibalizing the use cases, and customers don't necessarily, yeah, if there's something's already working, they're not going to have the same pain and then
Exactly.
want to pursue it in a different channel always. Interesting. So, I mentioned this off camera, but something I've also been experiencing in the middle of a merger. I'm just curious, like, we kind of talked about this as well. Like, there's decisions that are made by higher ups, and then part of product marketing's role is like bringing that vision to life. What are some of like the other situations where I guess another way to say it is had to lead without necessarily like control or full, I guess, autonomy, decision making power?
Well, I think one of the bigger operational challenges of initiatives like this are, the bigger gaps that take longer to resolve. It's usually the people and the systems issues. Um, to put it like the nuts and bolts of it all, like you have different Salesforce instances for sellers at the two companies. You have to define how payouts and quota attainment will occur. Um, on the people side, like you have to influence marketers and sellers at acquired companies when there's a newness to the relationship and you don't have a chance to build trust. So that really takes a toll. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's fair enough. How did you overcome some of these challenges? You know, how do you go bridge those gaps?
I think like for me, it was like setting up a kickoff meeting early on and just defining the roles and responsibilities for everyone. I also really doubled down on building relationships with people. It was, I mean, right now I'm remote, but back in the day, there was no COVID. Like we were all in the office. So there was opportunity to do that, to like meet outside of work or, grab a beverage together. Like all of those things matter so much to build trust. And you certainly don't want to give the feeling of like you're the bigger player here and you've acquired someone. Like everyone needs to be on an equal footing for an initiative like this to work. So I think that's probably the most important thing. Like how do you invest in those relationships? How do you build trust? Um, I think that really needs to be considered.
Yeah, because even what you were mentioning earlier about like making sure the right use cases are presented, you also have to kind of retrain sellers, right? To
Yeah.
start being able to sell potentially a use case or feature they don't fully understand. So on that side, yeah, like how do you go about that process of not just re-educating the market, but re-educating your internal teams to sell it properly?
I think re-educating the internal teams, obviously we had like a whole sales enablement function that was stood up to make it happen. PMM was creating content, sales enablement on both sides were working on like the joint plan to make sure that quota attainment pipeline targets were clear. When it came to accounts, it was like who gets paid out and who's bringing in the account versus who's closing it. Like all of that had to be, I guess, you had to dot your I's and cross your T's before you go into an enablement situation like that. I think for me though, like when I'm thinking about the enablement and going back to all of this, I think what was challenging after the initial momentum of like this announcement and doing the training and building all the excitement was not having those right systems in place from the start. Like, I think the enablement happened a little bit later, but we didn't have the answers to everything. For example, like we couldn't track new pipeline properly. If they were dealing with duplicate accounts sitting in two different Salesforce instances, then that created confusion and chaos. And when that happens, I think AEs who have quotas to hit, they're losing patience. They have they just decide to abandon it and shift focus to other more immediate revenue drivers. And that tends to happen on the marketing side as well. When pipeline targets start to feel more pressing, then all these cross-sell projects and integration projects, they quickly slip into a secondary priority. And so for me, I guess like sustaining excitement for a project like this beyond that initial quarter, like what was a little bit painful, and it took more on my part. I doubled down on like creating short videos to build excitement and like bringing in sellers who had seen success and sharing those stories with the team. But I found that, yeah, after the first quarter, it was hard. It was hard. I had to be
Yeah,
proactive in
I
keeping.
like that you Yeah, I like that you called it a project because yeah, it is not a one-time thing, right? It's a continuous change management,
Yeah,
kind of project that you continue on, and eventually
yeah,
people start to change and behavior starts to change.
yep.
Um, so, what kind of advice would you give to a PMM like me that's in the midst of a merger or acquisition? Like, what should they be, yeah, aware of and cognizant of?
Well, my advice for PMMs would be to try and think ahead as much as possible. Really take the time to map out everything that could go wrong, plan for it upfront. And, back then we just didn't know what we didn't know. It was the first time for me and the whole Tiger team, really, leading a change of this scale. And it's going to be the first time for you. We were incredibly lucky to have George, who was the chief operating officer of Twilio at that time, guide us through it. He pushed us to really think of all the challenges and kept refining our approach week after week as we presented our updates to him. I think the advantage, though, that PMMs have today is that they don't have to figure it out manually when they haven't done it before. AI can be such an accelerant in situations like this. It can help you think through those blind spots with just some well-crafted prompts. If you know what to ask it, it will tell you what to do. And what I also like about it is that it's going to help you pull insights from other experiences that other professionals have had. So I think in a way, it shortens the learning curve dramatically. You can just prepare smarter, you can move faster, you'll make fewer mistakes along the way. And I've really been leveraging AI a lot now as like a thought partner. It's doing more than just like writing copy for me. It's I spend so much time with it. It's like a coworker now.
Yeah. Yeah, if you train your GPT right, it becomes your teammate, it becomes, more than just a copywriting tool, so
Yeah.
I really like that. I would love to have, Nupur's, your proprietary GPT running by my side.
Nice of you. No, we should talk all about AI and how to scale that in your product marketing organization. Different topic for another time, but
Yeah, exactly. We'll need at least another hour.
yeah.
Um, that's very interesting. So, yeah, I think it's really good advice. So you clearly have some battle scars, and now you've learned after your time at Twilio. Would love to kind of talk a little bit more about your time now. You're at Customer, you're head of product marketing there. What's your team look like? What have you been up
Yeah.
to?
So, well, after Twilio, I joined Kustomer. We are a native AI CX customer experience platform for B2C companies. Kustomer has had quite the journey of its own, which I'm sure you've seen. But it went through an acquisition and a divestiture, but I actually joined right after that transition. So I can't take any credit for the storytelling that came out of that period. But what I can say is that when a company goes through something that big, the brand often gets lost somewhere in the process. Um, when I came in, the team was rebuilding both in terms of structure and identity. And my role was really to help lead that from a product marketing perspective. So, one of the bigger initiatives that I had in those first, I think, 6 to 9 months was what we called the Customer 2.0 launch. It was a full rebrand, like brand reboot, new colors, new logo, completely fresh new identity. And we also debuted our first AI native product and a roadmap for several more. We also did an overhaul of our pricing and packaging to reflect this new phase. So, like all across pricing and packaging, new products, new brand. Um, and what I learned through this experience is that when a change like that happens, customer trust can really take a hit, and there's often uncertainty. Customers worry that the roadmap might get abandoned or their needs will fall through the cracks. Competitors, of course, amplify that fear. So for us, the rebranding wasn't just a cosmetic move. It was, rebuilding confidence, reintroducing customer to the market, bringing more clarity to it, and signaling that we are back and much stronger and ready for what's next.
Very cool. How do you rebuild that trust? It's very hard, right? One city roads, whether that is because of some sort of M&A activity or it's just some sort of departure from your roots, whatever that is. Yeah, how do you go about rebuilding that with the brand?
I think well, the brand and visual identity is one thing, but we really doubled down on how we talked about our product roadmap to our customers. I think publishing that early on and sticking to the roadmap and bringing it up proactively with our customer base, um, on a recurring basis and communicating and being very transparent with them when we decide to make shifts, I think helped build that confidence and rebuild trust. I think that was important because ultimately for them what matters is like, okay, this is what's happening on your end. What about us? What's going to happen to us? We've talked to you about these capabilities and these features. What happens to that? Like that's what matters at the end of the day. And so while the rebrand was important, that was a signal for new prospects. It was also, a lot of like behind the scenes work where our CSM team stood up new initiatives with marketing support to bring the roadmap to our existing customers through product webinars, through one pagers that we could send them, and start from there. But obviously, it takes time.
Yeah, and sticking to the roadmap is also very hard if, based on our collaborations with our product market or product management counterparts.
For sure.
Very cool. So, I'm curious, just like as you're in this role now, like what excites you about the future, about what you're building today? What are some of the challenges ahead, and what are you doing to solve them?
Um, what genuinely excites me about what we're building at Customer is our AI native vision. Um, a lot of companies out there claim to be AI first, but very few are AI native, and that's really our moat. We've re-architected the platform from the ground up so that AI isn't an add-on or a feature, it's embedded in every corner of the product. And we've got some incredible releases coming up that I think will truly make us stand out in the CX space. Professionally, for me, this has been an amazing chapter. I think at Twilio, I had scale, but here at Customer, I have scope. And so my role and team, we have grown from 1 to 5 since I joined, and together the 5 of us handle everything. We have classic PMM responsibilities like messaging, positioning, launches, customer marketing, but we've also got PR relations, analyst relations, pricing, like all of these other ancillary functions that in a larger company would sit in other teams. And so for me, it's been a ton of learning. And honestly, I've loved the experience of working in a smaller team, in a smaller team environment. Yeah, it's been great.
Very cool. How do you think about like building your team specialization and roles? Like, I've heard a few different takes, and I'm curious how you've gone about it since you've seen many different teams at this point.
I've built teams. I think like this is the third time around. The first time when I built a team was when I was at Twilio. And to start with, I sort of was the catch-all person because I was working on the Twilio SendGrid integration and corporate narratives and pitch decks. And so really like I was the catch-all person. And so my team was the catch-all team. I had PMMs that weren't tied to like core, Twilio products, but were working on pretty strategic stuff. So I had one PMM that was focused on the SendGrid product. That was the acquisition. Another focus on developer experience products, and a third person that was focused on just selling to the enterprise. So things like single sign on, user access controls, like things that enterprises care about. And when you look at this team, you'll notice that there is not one single story that makes sense. Like, why would Nupur have a team of 3 people that have no overlap with each other? And so it was kind of odd. But I think what that team had was that everybody was very clear about what their role was and what their product that they were selling, or what they were building and marketing was going to do. And it's very similar to, the PM structure where the product managers don't work with each other. They work individually on their own product areas. So it was very much like that. When I moved to Segment, which was a company that Twilio acquired, that was in my last 2.5 years, I got to build a team that was focused on a singular product area. But I divided the team into different functional areas. So while everybody was working on Twilio Engage, one was focused on maybe just the website and overall positioning, like pitch decks and that sort of stuff. Another was focused on the sales enablement side of things, like competitive pricing, all of that. And then the third person was focused on like analyst relations, PR, like more corporate level narratives. And I think what that did was it brought a lot of like functional depth into those PMMs, but there was a lot of like, I think nobody really felt empowered to be like, this is my product and I need to make it successful. You know what I mean? Like when an ask would come out of nowhere, it was like, well, is that person doing it or is that person doing it? Whose task is it? And everybody would look at me to assign that out to a PMM on the team. You're nodding like you know what I'm talking about. I don't know.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I've seen this story before.
So that was like an interesting learning experience as well. But where I'm at right now at Customer, I think I've nailed it. I've got the secret sauce. So we do have product marketers that are focused on, specific product areas. And so that gives them that autonomy, and makes them feel like I guess, the CMO of their product. You know how they call the product managers the CEO of the product? And so PMMs feel like the CMO of their product with that. But I've also divided the functional areas between them. And so take, for example, release management. There is one PMM that's focused on release management in the form of a roadmap, another one focused on product webinars, and a third one focused on product, like monthly product newsletter. So it's all release management across the board, but they're focusing on like one aspect of it. On the functional side of things, like we have divided programs across different teams. So there's one PMM that's focused on win loss and voice of customer, which feels very much of, interviewing customers and drawing insights. Another PMM that's focused mostly on customer advocacy, so managing our G2 crowd program, and a third person that's focused on PR and AR. So people do feel responsible and can specialize in areas that they're naturally good at, that I've just noticed along the way, but they also have that like CMO of this product type mentality. So it's worked really well now.
I love that. Yeah, I was nodding because I've seen kind of a few different permutations, and
Yeah.
I've arrived at the same conclusion. I believe that, I've even heard one of the CEOs I used to work with say like product marketers are the mini CEOs,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that does add this crazy level of ownership where like
Mm.
now you feel like you have to drive revenue for this product.
Yep.
I think it like really exercises the CRO mindset of like
Yep.
I need to know what's going on at the deal level and like really be able to contribute to the business.
Yeah.
um, and then what you're saying, I think, is a great point as well, like functionally also being diverse and kind
Yeah.
of leaning into your strengths. Because like another thing I was just thinking about is like because product marketing is broad, like even if you are managing pricing, you're often going to be working with the other PMMs, right? Because they
Yeah.
own different product areas. You need to understand how they want to price their product areas. So I think like that to me, that is also, I agree that that's probably the secret sauce. I've seen it go wrong also a few
Yeah.
times, so it's nice to hear from someone, with a lot more experience.
I think what's worked really well for me is just asking the people what they want to do and what excites them the most, and try to give them that functional area. Or wait, one other thing, not just what excites them the most, but also what do they want to learn and what experience do they want to gather to put on their resume. I think that has helped, and people have opted into those functional areas that they want. They want to own. So that I think that's a good tip. And I didn't know that when I started, and yeah, it took some time to get there.
I like that. Yeah, and on the flip side, for the people that are listening to this, you have to speak up, right? You have to
Yeah.
go and say what you want to work on, what you want to learn. And I think, to tie this all back, especially when it's things are changing in the middle of a merger acquisition type of play, like you have to tell your manager early. I learned this, I think, I don't know, I'm probably one of the louder advocates for myself throughout my career. But I think because I had already planted those seeds, right? I want to do pricing, I want to do like these functional areas, it's very easy for me to take that going into
Yeah.
this merger and acquisition. And I think, yeah, I wish more people knew that. So I think it's a great point.
Well, I'm glad you're getting that experience with pricing. I think that's a very valuable one to have.
Yeah, I've done it before and I want to do it again because it never feels like it is an unfinished project always. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
wish I could have done this differently. And
Yeah.
there's so much to learn there. So
Yeah.
yeah, excited to continue to build in that direction. But enough about me. I'm very I'm curious, any other like learnings from, I mean, just to like tie this in a bow, like mergers and acquisitions, I think is not often spoken about when it comes to the PMM world. Like um, yeah, like where should PMMs also focus? You gave some advice around where where like how to go about it. I'm curious, like, if they're new to this world and they have to start ramping up quickly, where are the places to look?
I think step one would be to interview your leadership team and try to get clarity from them. So you want to be prepared with all the questions that could come up later. And again, like AI can help you do that. Um, Obviously, like mergers and acquisitions, like when it comes to any of that, leadership has already prepared decks, already presented that to the board or to someone like investors, whatever. It's already happened. So they have all the information. It just hasn't translated and hasn't reached you. So I think I would start with trying to get clarity on all of those things from leadership. always good to be prepared and have, your whole list of questions ahead of time. But the earlier you put that time on their calendar and hear it straight from them, rather than having like maybe your manager or your manager's manager be that, I guess, like middle spokesperson, the easier it will be on you to get wrapped up fast and to get moving and cracking on everything. So that I would say would be like the first step. And I was very lucky with the Twilio SendGrid one. We were working directly with the CEO of SendGrid at the time and the chief operating officer of Twilio on these things. We were doing weekly, readouts on how things were going and making pivots based on what they said. But where we started was asking them all the questions. So that's what I would say.
I love that. That's a great answer. Awesome. Well, this conversation has been super insightful. Like I said, at least for me, super actionable as well. Things I can go take home and start working on right after we are done recording. I hope other product marketers will see the same value and take action on it. Something I like to ask our guests as we wrap up is a fun question that I actually stole from one of my mentors.
Oh,
And the question is, product marketing is blank. Can you fill in the blank?
does it need to be one word? Can it be a sentence?
No, it could be a sentence, however you want to fill it.
Product marketing is making the complex feel simple and the simple feel powerful. I've always loved that moment when a customer or a sales rep suddenly just gets it. When a product's potential, it turns into that aha moment. I think that's what good product marketing does. It's just simplifying the storytelling and building trust with customers. So it's that blend between technology and trust, but using simple language. So that's
I love it.
yeah.
I love it. Yeah, simple is powerful. Awesome. Well, this has been a great convo. How can people learn more about what you're up to? And what's going on at Customer?
Well, I'm very vocal on LinkedIn, so I think that would be the best place. Do come in, shoot over a connection request. Always happy to build connections, talk about product marketing. It's my favorite thing to do, so that's probably the best place.
Love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sid. I had a great time.
For everyone still tuned in, thanks so much for listening. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please help us spread the word to other product marketers. Thanks again and have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are.